My next patron question is from Morgan, who is fascinated by a beloved fantasy film from the 80s. Out of curiosity, I'm wondering what are your thoughts on Dragonslayer, a 1981 summer blockbuster that did not make a box office impact but has a cult following. I find pretty much any fantasy film released in that decade developed a following of admirers of some kind. Think of Return to Oz, The Dark Crystal, Legend, The Never-Ending Story, Labyrinth, Willow, The Princess Bride, Ladyhawke, The Black Cauldron. You name it. If it was released from 1980 to 1989, had special effects, and involved magic of some kind, it eventually grew a fanbase. Dragonslayer is an interesting case though, because while not a box office hit when released in 1981, the critics really liked it, and the film even received a few Oscar nominations. The film is also notable for being one of a few films co-produced by Paramount and Disney at the time, the other being Popeye. And Dragonslayer definitely feels like the kind of Disney film that Ron Miller was pushing back then. Miller really wanted Disney to produce movies that went beyond the family audience they normally catered to. This eventually led to the creation of Touchstone Pictures, but before that the studio was already making a number of films with mature content. Dragonslayer does not skimp on the violence, and need I mention one of the main plot points involves virgins being sacrificed to the titular beast. Yes, the film was released by Paramount Pictures in North America, but the movie still opens with the words Walt Disney Productions presents. Giving Dragonslayer a look for the first time, I did find the beginning of the film to be a tad slow. It takes a little while for the film to find its footing and set up the world. One of the characters is also a young woman disguised as a boy to avoid being sacrificed, and it's frankly not that convincing of a disguise. The reveal comes as a shock to the characters, but probably is not to the audience. Eventually I did start to get into the story and the characters. Peter MacNicol, in his film debut, is clearly playing a Luke Skywalker type, but he portrays Galen with the needed likability. By the way, one of director Matthew Robbins' main inspirations for the film was the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment in Fantasia. There's even a point where Galen is specifically referred to as a Sorcerer's Apprentice. I also like the friendship he forms with the aforementioned female lead, Valerian, played by Caitlin Clarke. She proves to be helpful in her own way during the quest, and I felt she stole the show in a number of scenes. Maybe the most well-regarded aspect of the movie comes from the dragon. It actually takes a good long while for the dragon to show up. When he does, the wait is absolutely worth it. It's an amazing special effect that still holds up remarkably well today. This is not surprising when you look at some of the wizards who were involved in the making of Dragonslayer. Dennis Muren, Phil Tippett, Ken Ralston, and Chris Wallace, to name a few. These talents played a role in some of the most renowned visual effects in 80s cinema. When Galen comes face to face with a dragon, it results in the standout sequence of the movie. There is a sense of wonderment Robbins brought to the film, and if you were disappointed in the Dungeons & Dragons movie from 2000, Dragonslayer might be a more fitting representation of that game. There's a mage, his wizard mentor, a princess, a ruthless king, dungeons, and dragons. Watching it, I also wondered if this might have been an influence on Peter Jackson's adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. The use of impressive vistas, some of the costume designs, and even a few shots felt very reminiscent of those movies. There are a number of times when MacNicol resembles Frodo, and when Guillermo del Toro was going to direct The Hobbit, he said he hoped to make his Smaug as impactful as the dragon in Dragonslayer. As I said, the film earned a few Oscar nominations. One was for Alex North's magical score, which actually included a few pieces he originally composed for 2001: A Space Odyssey. It lost to Chariots of Fire, which, can't argue with that. The movie was also up for Best Visual Effects. Its competition, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Both would have been worthy winners, but Indiana Jones ultimately took home the trophy. One thing that crossed my mind, is the title Dragonslayer intentionally meant to sound like Dragon's Lair when you say it out loud? Something to think about. To conclude, Dragonslayer provides an entertaining fantasy film, and it's easy to see why it enchanted so many. Thank you for your question, Morgan.